During the pandemic, people were sitting at home, Googling how to make money working from home and researching various get-rich-quick schemes. And some of them discovered this thing called real estate wholesaling. They watch YouTube videos from wholesaling gurus explaining how anyone could get into real estate investing with no money and no skills. These gurus unleashed a horde of new wholesalers on the real estate economy, and they started submitting offers on properties. The problem is, real estate wholesalers are essentially fake buyers. I'm here to warn you about them, especially if you're a landowner or a realtor. So I will give you 10 reasons why land sellers should not accept offers from wholesalers. The first reason is that even though wholesalers submit offers to buy land, they are not actual buyers. Now, it might be hard to understand that, so let me give you an example of how the wholesaler might work. The first step is that the wholesaler pretends to be a buyer and submits an offer to a landowner. Let's say this offer is $70,000. The landowner accepts the $70,000 offer. The landowner is unaware that the person pretending to be a buyer is a wholesaler. The wholesaler and the landowner then open escrow. And while the property is in escrow, the wholesaler turns around and markets the land at, say, $100,000 to his list of potential buyers. Let's say a friend of the wholesaler offers the wholesaler something like $95,000. So here's what he does. He assigns the contract to the end buyer. The end buyer steps into the wholesaler's shoes and is now in escrow with the seller. If all goes well, the end buyer will pay $95,000 in cash for the land, and the escrow will close. The original landowner ends up getting $70,000 just as he was promised. The wholesaler receives $25,000, and the end buyer gets title to the land. To summarize, the first reason a landowner should not accept an offer from a wholesaler is that they're not actual buyers. Reason number 2, realtors usually cost less compared to wholesalers. Let me show you an example. Suppose the seller decides he won't get involved with a wholesaler. He's going to list his land the traditional way with a realtor. Suppose the realtor charges 6%. The realtor can find a buyer at $95,000 too. The realtor will charge 6% of $95,000, which is $5,700. And by the way, I'm ignoring escrow, title, closing costs in all of my examples to keep calculations simple. So where does the rest of the money go? Well, it goes to the seller. So instead of the seller receiving $70,000, the seller gets $89,300. This is because realtors eat up less of the seller's proceeds compared to wholesalers. The third reason a landowner should not accept an offer from a wholesaler is that wholesalers do not market the land thoroughly. And why should you as a seller care about that? Well, for you to get your money, Mr. Seller, the wholesaler will have to find an end buyer. And if he's not marketing the land thoroughly during the escrow period, he won't find an end buyer. And that means you won't get your $70,000 or whatever. Now, the thing is, the wholesaler can only market what he owns. Does the wholesaler own the land? No, he does not own the land. So he can't legally advertise the land. What does he own? He owns the right to buy the land. Some people call this equitable interest. Other people call it contractual interest. The way I think about it is that the seller owns dirt and the wholesaler owns paper. You can see how awkward this situation is for the wholesaler. He cannot market the land publicly because he does not own it. All he can market is the right to buy the land, the contract. So how do wholesalers market their contracts? Well, most wholesalers have what they call a buyer's list. And this is my artist rendering of what a buyer's list might look like. They might blast out an email to everyone on their buyer's list saying, "Hey, I have a contract on some land. Would you like to buy it from me?" Even if the buyer's list has 50 or 100 people on it, whatever the wholesaler does with their buyer's list, it's far less comprehensive than what a realtor can achieve. How do realtors market land? Even an agent doing the bare minimum will enter the listing into their local multiple listing service or MLS. From that local MLS, it is syndicated to all the other real estate offices in the area. In addition, it's syndicated out to national portals like Zillow.com, Realtor.com, Redfin.com. So if the land is in California, buyers anywhere in the nation, in fact, anywhere in the world, can see that this land is available just by looking at those national portals. This is why realtor marketing is far more comprehensive than what a wholesaler can achieve. For example, I'm a California land broker, and here is one of my listings on Zillow. When I made this video, it had 2,597 views on Zillow, and that's just Zillow. It's also getting views on Realtor.com, Redfin.com, Trulia.com, etc., and on the websites of every real estate company in that area. That's probably tens of thousands of views. You might wonder, can't a wholesaler just enter their contract into the MLS and achieve the same marketing reach? Well, there are several difficulties with that. Only real estate agents can enter property into the MLS. Wholesalers are not typically agents. Now, a wholesaler could try to hire an agent, but most agents won't work with wholesalers. I mean, what do you think is going to happen when the wholesaler contacts an agent and says, "Hey, will you list this land for me? I don't own it, but I want to sell it." I mean, realtors are going to be like, "No way, are you kidding me?" Further, every MLS system has rules that the agents belonging to that MLS must abide by. Many MLS systems will not allow wholesale deals to be entered into the MLS. Here are the policies of two California MLS systems, the CR MLS and Metrolist. If the agent is not representing the seller, then they cannot enter the property into the MLS. In order to enter a listing into the MLS, the listing broker must possess a listing agreement signed by a party which has the authority to offer the property for sale or lease. Equitable interest typically does not satisfy this requirement, as such would not be permitted. Now, here's the policy of the Oregon RMLS. Agents can only enter listings into the MLS on behalf of the property owner, except that the owner shall not include a person who merely has the right to purchase the property but does not yet own it. Now, some wholesalers try to get around the system by using a flat fee MLS service. I'm referring to businesses that will place listings in the MLS for a low fee of a couple $100s. So behind the scenes of these flat fee businesses, there is an agent. But what happens when a buyer sees the listing on, say, Zillow and has a question? Well, naturally, the buyer will call the agent. But will the agent assist them and answer their questions? Definitely not. The agent will refer all buyers to the wholesaler. What will the wholesaler say when the buyer asks if they are the agent or are they the owner? Will they say they're not the agent and they don't own it, but they're selling it? And that's going to go over well. Will they know the answers to buyer questions about the land? Here are some examples of some questions that I get from buyers as a land broker. Has there been a perk test? Can it be subdivided? Are the corners marked? How deep are the wells in that area? Can I stay in my RV on that parcel? How steep is the terrain? How far away is district water? Is a tiny home allowed? Can you give me directions? What is the zoning? How is the school system? So yes, realtors can be a pain. I know because I'm one of them and I can be a pain, but at least agents market properties thoroughly and answer buyers' questions. Reason number 4, wholesalers require long escrows and long contingency periods. A typical escrow period from the time a contract with a buyer is signed to the time the seller gets their money is something like 21 days for vacant land in California. Now, how long are escrows with wholesalers? Well, there's no way a wholesaler can close escrow in 21 days, because remember, they have to look for an end buyer during the escrow period, and so 21 days is not enough time. So it will be many weeks or months before the wholesaler closes and the seller gets their money. If a seller has plans for that money and wants to receive it ASAP, they will be out of luck. A 5th reason a landowner should not accept an offer from a wholesaler is that they will usually try to come back and renegotiate the deal. For example, suppose a wholesaler cannot find a buyer to pay $95,000 as in the previous example. Suppose they can only find a buyer to pay $85,000. Will the wholesaler take a cut? No way. They'll go back to the seller and say, "Hey, I found this problem with the land, so will you take less, like $60,000? Sellers, of course, can say, "No way, a deal's a deal, take a hike." But many will grudgingly say yes. Then they will get $60,000 instead of the $70,000 that was promised. Reason number 6, wholesalers often cancel escrow. On vacant land in California, I find that they cancel like 90% of the time. Your experience may differ. Now, what's so bad about a cancellation? I mean, the landowner can just sell the land to someone else, right? The problem is cancellations are a bad look for the seller. This property was listed, then canceled, then back on the market, then canceled, then back on the market. Buyers seeing this will wonder what is wrong with the land that is causing all these cancellations. What happens is that future buyers will wrongly assume that there's something wrong with the land itself, or they may think the seller is now highly motivated to sell and will accept a lower price. Either way, this affects the likelihood that buyers will submit an offer and the price they will offer. So wholesaler cancellations can affect the seller's bottom line. Like people, land can get a bad reputation. Reason 7. Wholesalers rarely submit a deposit to escrow. Wholesalers will typically write a tiny deposit into their offers, like $100. And if they include a larger deposit, they might include the statement that they're not going to submit their deposit to escrow until after they remove their contingencies. Suppose the wholesaler proposes a 60-day escrow and they include a 59-day contingency period inside that 60 days. They're essentially saying that they will take no risks and put no money into escrow until they're 100% sure that they found an end buyer, and that will be on day 59. Whatever they write into their offer regarding the deposit, I find that they often conveniently forget to send it to escrow. I will remind them, and they will say they will submit it tomorrow. Then tomorrow comes, and they will say they will submit it tomorrow, and so forth. And when the wholesaler cancels, as they often do, what does the landowner get? They get nothing, that's what. Reason 8. Wholesalers can create legal liability for sellers. How does this happen? As you may know, land sellers in California are required by law to disclose material facts about their land. Sellers will write down everything they know about the land, especially negative facts, and give those disclosures to the buyer. So when a seller thinks the wholesaler is the buyer, they naturally provide these disclosures to the wholesaler. The question is, will the wholesaler give those disclosures to the end buyer? I'm thinking maybe not. So suppose the seller discloses to the wholesaler that the land failed to perk for septic or the neighbor's house is encroaching on the land. Or suppose the seller discloses that this commercial land used to have a car repair business on it, so there may be hazardous waste. Will the wholesaler pass this information on to the end buyer? Probably not. What happens when the end buyer later discovers this fact after closing? A lawsuit, that's what. And it might be directed at the seller. Dealing with attorneys and legal matters is expensive and super not fun. Reason 9. Wholesalers make lowball offers. This is probably obvious, but wholesalers cannot offer landowners a price that reflects the actual value of the land because then they won't make any money that way. So they offer the landowner far less. This is so they can pocket the margin when they sell the land at a higher price. If you want the most you can possibly get for your land, working with a wholesaler is not the answer. Reason 10. Wholesalers make highball offers. This happens when a newbie wholesaler is not familiar with prices in that area and doesn't know what they're doing. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what could possibly be wrong with a high offer. Here's an example to explain. Suppose the inexperienced wholesaler offers a seller $100,000 on a piece of land worth $95,000. The seller would be happy with that high offer and accept it right away. But then the wholesaler might market it to his list at something like $125,000 so that he can make a $25,000 margin. However, $125,000 is so high that no buyer will submit an offer, so he won't find a buyer and he will cancel. The result is that the seller will get $0, not $100,000. That's the problem with highball offers. If you want the highest price possible for your land, list with a realtor, preferably a land broker. Yes, it will take weeks to sell, and yes, you will pay a commission. But if you want to get the most for your land, that's how to do it. Now, suppose you don't necessarily want the highest price possible. What you want is to sell it quickly. You have an urgent need, and you want cash in your hands like yesterday. And suppose you receive an unsolicited offer in the mail. The difficulty is that both actual buyers and wholesalers submit unsolicited offers to sellers. These offers look very similar and are hard to tell apart. But let's say you vet the person and realize the offer is from a wholesaler. What should you do? Throw away their offer, that's what. But what if it's from an actual buyer? Then consider it if you want to sell immediately and you're willing to accept a low price in return for a fast sale. So here's a summary of the 10 reasons that landowners should not accept an offer from a wholesaler. Wholesalers submit offers to buy land, but they are not actual buyers. Realtors usually cost less than wholesalers. Wholesalers don't market land thoroughly. They require long escrows and long contingency periods, and they try to renegotiate the deal. They often cancel escrow, and they rarely submit a deposit. They can create legal liability for sellers. They make lowball offers, and they make highball offers. Do you want to know how to tell the difference between a real buyer and a wholesaler? I mean, the wholesaler's not going to tell you straight out that they're a wholesaler, but there are clues. I will create another video and show you how. So subscribe so that you will get notified of that video as soon as it drops. So I'm curious, do you agree with my opinions here? Do you disagree? Have you had a good experience or a bad experience with a wholesaler? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to know.